Welcome to Conversations with Dez. I'm Dez Blanchfield, and today I have the pleasure of being joined in the studio by James Silva. Now, James is the Chief Growth Officer for Scaia AI Incorporated. Hi, James. Welcome and great to see you.
Thank you, Des, for having me on.
So, for our audience who are tuning in, we're going to be talking with you, James, about Scaia AI, the company. We're going to delve a little into your role as Chief Growth Officer. And we're also going to cover a lot of those key service and solution offerings from Scaia AI, such as your AI advisory and AI consulting, your e-discovery solution, and your education training and certification services, and much more. But before we dive into all of that, James, I wonder if you could just give us a brief overview of what a day in the life of James Silver is like in your role of Chief Growth Officer there at Scaia AI, and what it's like currently, and maybe some insight into kind of what your overall role entails.
Thank you, Des. Yes, I'm very honored to assist the company and be a part of it because as we move forward, we definitely learn. And with that, I have opportunities with many people from Brazil to the Middle East to Asia. And when we interact with people, that's the key to build the relationships. And that's kind of my position to say, hey, how you doing out there? How's your strategy? What's your next step? Maybe people want to talk, maybe they don't. You always give them the benefit. And with that, I'm able to, build those lasting connections and trust. And basically, that's what it is. I believe that's my purpose. Of course, we all want to grow, whether it's in knowledge, profitability, and position ourselves for the better. And this is what we want to do for our clients.
Perfect. Yes, I think a lot of people forget over time, but they realize quickly when they come to buy services that we do business with people, not the businesses directly. And that I know from a lot of chief growth officers that I work with, they tell me that the number one thing is to build that trust, build a rapport, and then with that comes opportunities because people are willing to speak to you and open up kind of to what they're looking for. Well, let's now dive into today's key topics for our audience. So firstly, I was thinking we might just get a high-level introduction to Scaia AI, the company in general. So James, the seemingly exponential growth in ongoing demand for artificial intelligence solutions in general by almost every business and organization in what would fairly be said every single industry and across every market sector all over the world, it shows no sign of slowing down anytime soon. And it seems to me that your company, Scaia AI, is perfectly placed to help folks solve their AI needs. Could we kick off with maybe just where you see Scaia AI, the company, fitting in that market space and potentially being a perfect fit for that very demand that you're seeing in the market through the lens of your role as Chief Growth Officer? Because I know our audience are looking for business partners like Scaia AI to help them get started with AI.
Oh, thank you, Des. Definitely the strategy that some leaders and organizations and companies are looking at is basically looking on the internet and asking even Chat GPT. There's nothing wrong with that, but when we are able to see the differences that we can take with your data to make you more efficient or more satisfactory to your clients, this is the main thing. And whatever problem it is, we can assess it, we can consult, we can test, we can even give a trial basis run and see if it's to the client or customer's satisfaction or desires. Because as we position ourselves, we want to be on the forefront. We have weekly webinars for learning. We can instruct in basic AI to high-level programming for AI and language models for CEOs, for tech teams. We speak several languages, and we are open to assisting in any way we can for our clients.
Fantastic. I wonder if we can now dive into some of those services and solutions that Sky AI offers. Earlier today, actually, just before I jumped on the call with you, I did yet another sort of virtual walkthrough your company's website, and to me, it was abundantly clear that you offer, as you said, a very broad range of AI-related business and technology services and solutions. And in fact, I highly recommend our audience do just that. Go visit the Sky AI website to learn more about the organization and your AI offerings overall. The URL will be wherever you see this interview, but it's Scaia.ai. That's SCAIA.ai. I'll have that linked wherever you see this video. I wonder if we could just maybe talk about some of those core offerings that are available that you outlined from Scaia AI, and in particular, your AI consulting and advisory services initially. And then I'd love to pivot to the e-discovery solution because I think that's a perfect fit for a couple of things. And then we'll get into your training, education, and certification. So let's start with the consulting and advisory first. Could you give us just
Sure.
an outline of what Sky AI can offer customers in the way of AI consulting and advisory services?
Well, our first would be looking at their strategy. What is their strategy for the AI realm? You know, is it internal? It's for their clients. I mean, depending on what they want, we can tailor whatever they need concerning to their desires and requirements. Natural language processing, we can do that in 200 languages. We had one foreign entity, military, that asked us, well, can you do it in real time? Well, that's a little difficult because as you get your data within your systems into what we can apply, what we can apply our AI to, then you can work the magic with basic,
Hmm.
revealing the data that you want from that information from within, and how you can manipulate that in order or analyze that in order to have a better outcome. Yes. Now, e-discovery, that's a big part of it too, because e-discovery is taking your data and relating that or comparing that to the outside sets, as I mentioned before, and how you can actually make the decisions you need from these evaluations. And other things, you know, if you are looking for IoT, you're looking for anything machine teaming, human machine learning, human
Hmm.
teaming, we can do that also. Our programmers are, very experienced. We've gotten contracts in the past with DARPA, with the U.S. military. We've worked for major banks and other entities globally to help them with their programming, their data management, and their data strategy. So this is where we want to help others. Yes.
Fantastic. I wanted to just quickly touch on some of the things you mentioned with regard to the initial advisory and consulting there.
Mhm.
For our audience, I know that there's an enormous demand in this space in that when we think about a lot of the organizations you've mentioned now, for example, and if we think about small, medium, and large, if I'm a small
Mhm.
retailer, if I'm a small legal firm or an accountancy firm, whether I'm a network of accountancy firms, I might be in transport, logistics, aviation, education, whatever the case may be, what I tend to find, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is that that
Mhm.
they realize very quickly their core business is not AI solutions. Their core business is whatever they do day to day. So if they're a retailer, their core business is retail. If they're a bank, their core business is banking. And they may have some general IT capability. They might have a security team. They might have a team that sort of do things like create usernames and passwords. But what they generally don't have is a core competency in AI. So I imagine that a
Mhm.
lot of the initial communication you've got from people comes around kind of just helping getting them a basic language and vocabulary with which to speak about AI and the context of what their business does. And whether it's machine learning or whether it's a trained model or a pre-trained model or they train the model on their own
Mhm.
data. Is it the case that the initial contact point for organizations, even for a lot who have already run some sort of AI initiative, that they come to you for
Mhm.
that original piece of advisory all the way up to the board level as to simple things like, have you got an AI strategy in place? And if not, can we help you
Mhm.
write it? Do you have a roadmap across the organization for all your vertical silos? Is it the case that organizations
Right.
come to you for that very early advisory piece that then transitions into consultancy?
Well, I remember just reading recently where a CEO of a major company asked their employees for their ideas. I mean, they had like 80 or so ideas concerning how to use the AI, how to manage their data, and what they need. And this is where you can look at and analyze what would be the
Hmm.
best avenue for each of those ideas, because everyone has the ideas, and the CEOs and the CTOs, the CIOs, these people and the CFOs, they need to make the decisions of how to stay competitive and profitable. Well, similar to ChatGPT, as we all know, anybody can do it. You know, they can write you a poem, a song, write code. The thing is that if you have these ideas, you can ask ChatGPT. That's the easy part, you know. But how do you implement in your environment and for your company, and then also for your customer? This is how you can manage your data for better use. And how do you stay competitive? Because anyone can use the ChatGPT, that and all the rest of them, whether it's Gemini or whatever. And the thing is that how can you stay competitive in order to manage your data more efficiently?
Yeah, in fact, that brings up something that I was working on an article that's coming out next week with, and that is that as we saw with the dot-com boom, the big data boom, the cloud boom, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
organizations didn't get ahead of it. They didn't come to partners like Scaia AI and say, we need a strategy, we need a roadmap, help us build
Mm-hmm.
some plans to go and implement this and leverage it ourselves where we're in control. They left it very late, particularly with the likes of cloud, and then cloud happened to them. They didn't really get a choice. Big data
Um,
happened to them. You know, when we think about the big data shift, a lot of organizations didn't really understand it. They didn't get a partner like Sky AI on board, and so that effectively happened to them without their control. And I'm seeing this now with AI, where, as you said, you've got OpenAI's ChatGPT, you've got Google's Gemini, you've got Microsoft's Copilot. They're quite literally built into the platforms now. If you open up a word processor, there's an AI tool there. If you open up a spreadsheet,
that's
there's a
right.
tool there. And to my mind, in many ways, that's AI happening to organizations that's not in their control. And I think, in a large part, I think our audience should be thinking about this and how they come to you for that initial advisory piece and then some early consulting. And particularly, and we'll get onto the topic of e-discovery in a moment, is that I think it's
Mm-hmm.
so critical, as you touched on, to work with your own data and your own tools and your own places, particularly with data locality
Yep.
controls, data protection
Mm-hmm.
controls. We don't, you know, we've heard horror stories of people doing things like putting source code into generative AI tools to try and improve it, only to then discover they just gave away all their IP to the world, to giving away, you know, customer data into tools, and we won't name them, but another generative AI and saying, you know, where are the highest risks? Where are the business benefits? How do I make more money from this client? Only to find
That's
out
right.
that all that data now is available to the entire world because it's been used to train that tool just like them. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
nightmare scenario because you can't then undo that. E-discovery is a big part of what I think a lot of organizations are going to stumble with. And I'd like to delve into that. Um, Tell us initially, just because I've got a couple of questions to follow on this. Tell us about your e-discovery
Sure.
offering overall, because you know, as I alluded to, everyone we speak to on a
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day basis is telling us the same thing, that they are constantly facing challenges right across the board with their organizations, from the
Mm-hmm.
front door at the reception desk all the way through to the boardrooms, as well as externally, you know, with integration of third-party systems, et cetera, with mergers, acquisitions, and so forth. When they come across data sets, they haven't necessarily done full e-discovery. They haven't mapped them all. They don't have a data map. They don't know who, or a data catalog. They don't know who has access to it. They don't know who's got control of it. They don't necessarily know what systems it's in. Where are you seeing e-discovery help organizations in those very efforts, and particularly to get them to the point where they can, you know, achieve successful AI outcomes?
Thank you. Well, basically, when you're looking at using your data and using in comparison to the trillions of sets out there, that's one measure. But what we can do with our programs, and the programs are open source, but we can build almost anything to satisfy a customer's need. The issue is that, let's say you want a market analysis. Well, we go to sleep. Our computers are asleep too during the night, whatever. You're not working 24 hours a day. So you can have a program running on the data streams and the information that's coming in, let's say for a market analysis of your products or your services and your competitors within the data from outside and inside, comparing and issuing you results of what you would like to know. For example, all right, market analysis. Well, okay, if this happens or this or that happens, what would be my next step? Okay, that's just one simple question, but more so, how can I change with the market to stay one step ahead, or how can I use that data in order for myself, my organization, or my customers. And depending on your question, you could have automatically through the e-discovery have your information and your data against the trillions of sets, being able to give you answers. So when you get to your office, you open your computer and it's a new day, you'll be able to start and say, hey, I've got all my initial information to start making my decisions and how I should do these things, whatever it is, from HR to security to market analysis to you name it. So with that, and the ongoing almost like replication of this data, we could feed it through. We can give you an analysis of what the next day could even look like. Then you run it again the next evening and you look at it again in light of what the predictive analysis was. And then you can say, wow, is this good or not? Is this going to help me or not? And then you can ask your basic questions, because what we use is already out there. It's just managing your data for your strategy. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I talking to Mark Kersner, your CEO, the other day around these very key topics as well. He outlined it very nicely, just based on what you said there, and that was, he said, once you get into an organization, you've done the initial advisory piece around kind of where are you at and where you want to get to, and then some initial consulting, developing those programs of work and the strategies and the planning, and then you actually get in there. He said that the e-discovery that you offer is often a really great place to start as a proof of concept and to get some quick wins for the management team and the board, because one of the first steps with AI is to actually map your data, to validate the data, remove any data that may be invalid or out of date or might cause some negative bias or even a positive bias that's a false positive, right? I remember reading an article last week, actually, and I won't mention the country because it would be embarrassing for them. But apparently one of the team was obsessed with good data, good weather. He was collecting this weather data on sunny days, summer days, because he liked to go on holiday. And so over decades, he'd been collecting this data of the best temperatures, the sunniest days, and then he wanted to find the best time to go on holiday. Somebody came along and found his data set and thought, oh, he's collected some data for weather. We'll do some analysis on it. And every time they asked for predictive analysis on the weather, it always looked sunny, and yet it was the middle of winter and it was dark and it was cold and the sun didn't come up more than about 6 hours a day, and they couldn't work it out. So when someone else came in, the likes of a Scaia AI came in, they said, well, have you looked at where the data's come from? And so they did. They went back and they remapped the data. They did e-discovery. And they said, well, you're only looking at the summer data and you're only looking at the weekends, and particularly days where it's over 30 degrees Celsius. Of course, it's got a positive bias towards sunny days and it's predicting sunny days. You're only looking at the happy weather data. You've left all the storms and so inadvertently, they were training this model to only predict good outcomes in weather. And I think these are some of the things where your e-discovery solution helps in the very early days, which is map the data sets that are there, audit and validate them, make sure that they make sense, map who might have access to them, who shouldn't. But also, more importantly, actually provides a really nice, easy first step for a proof of concept that produces very real and significant value for the business, which is we now know where our data sets are, we know the value of them, we've validated them, we've removed any potential risky bad data or any bias sets, and then you actually train them and you run it, you get an outcome. One other thing on that, just briefly as well, if I can, James, was going through your website and talking to Mark, and I also had the chance to talk to Rod, your CTO. A thing that a lot of people forget is that when they're talking to this data, they're using natural language to just ask plain language questions. And a big part of what you can offer as part of your e-discovery, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd love to touch on this and get your take on it or how you describe it, is natural language processing. So you ingest all this data, you train on it locally, it's in a protected, safe virtual machine, as you said, but then I can start asking it plain language questions. Tell us a little bit about the NLP piece, the natural language processing, and once I train on a data set and get it into the model, what does that interaction look like? How does that sort of interface get presented?
The interface for what now? You're talking about the NLP?
Let's say I've done the discovery with you and you've helped me in the consulting piece, bring all my data in, we've mapped it, we've now trained the model up. A lot of people aren't always clear on that. They maybe had a conversation, as you said, with ChatGPT, and it's like, write me a haiku for my Valentine. But looking at your website, I mean, you can provide API access to this backend. You can talk to it through a text
Yes.
interface or a browser, right? So the key point of that
Yes.
is, I understood from my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have to be an AI expert. You don't have to be a data analyst expert. You could literally just ask plain questions and it will talk back to you because your model and your e-discovery platform does that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it just depends on what the client or the customer would desire concerning the model. You know, like I said, market analysis is one aspect. Maybe security, physical, cybersecurity is another. I mean, when you look and you test this data over a period of time, and you could have years of data, you'll be able to build every model for whatever sector or position or office or a goal that you want, and be able to use that and compare with others, because like an engine, you want a smooth running machine. If one thing is out of whack a little bit, maybe it won't be as beneficial. If they're, of course it will, if it's all running smoothly, and you can bounce off each other. You can test others from, okay, the cybersecurity realm to the physical realm. Are there, I mean, there's insider threats nowadays too,
Mm, mm.
and there's, you know, espionage
Yeah.
concerning business and things like that. So, you really have to protect yourself. And with that, you can look at any anomalies, you can look at any concerning security, any kind of pre positioned programming to look for, let's say, if somebody types the word sex. Well, you want to know in the company who's typing that, what's the purpose, why they did that, what time it was. There's a lot of things involved, sir. So with
Yeah.
that, you can address some of those things. Is it according to your policy? And how can you keep your HR doing well, and also abide by the policy? So
Yeah, yeah.
some of those visions, yeah.
I saw a
I'm
great
sorry.
example the other day that I think it was Rod was talking about, and that was that one of the great things about your e-discovery is that once you go and map the data and you import it or ingest it and it's processed, and as you said, it can be run overnight, which reminds me of sort of the days where, we would have big database systems, we would be doing data entry all day, and that's still the case, import all the data into the bank, and then the reporting was so massive that we would essentially run them overnight in parallel to the backups because it would take 7 or 8 hours to produce the cross-business reporting so that everyone got to work at 8:30 in the morning could start seeing the reports. But there was an example that I wanted to highlight, because
Mm-hmm.
when you touched on a couple of those things there, one thing that really jumped out at me talking to some others on your team and yourself now is that when a partner like Scaia AI comes in and does the e-discovery, builds a model, trains it up, the core strength I see in many ways is that the organizations and the customers, their team don't have to be AI experts. They can then query the data through different interfaces. They can talk to it natural language. And so you can have a scenario, let's say a manufacturing company where they've imported all their data sets. They maybe have seen all their procurement for the SKUs that they need to produce the things, all of the products they sell themselves that are being produced from that, the workflows, the order processing, the pick and packing. And then you're going to have different parts of the organization asking questions in their context. So finance can now ask questions
That's
around
right.
what is the average
Mm-hmm.
price we're paying for this widget? And then HR can sort of say, well, how many roles are we actually hiring for this? And have we got any skills gaps? And I really like the idea that e-discovery offering you have provides not just that early quick win for a proof of concept, but it's also a capability that the entire organization then could be trained up and taught to leverage and discover those gaps, as you alluded to, things they didn't know or things they don't necessarily see, because it isn't always our job to sit there and ask those big questions all day. We're generally focused on operational issues of buying and selling things. To that point, let's now sort of think about. I wanted to get into some of the learning side of things in education, because everywhere we look, we're seeing huge demand for learning services as organizations are under great pressure to get their staff trained up and educated with the appropriate skills and certifications to be ready, willing, and able to adopt and leverage all things AI successfully. Could you just give us a brief summary of kind of your overall training, education, and certification offering? And then I've got a bunch of questions I'd love to delve into.
Sure. From our sister company, Elephant Scale, it's a unique name, and it's hard to forget that. So
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons it's named that. But we offer many trainings concerning, programming, AI, language models, and how to use your data, basically, from basic on higher up to level for tech teams and so forth. And even for the CEOs, there are courses we provide to help them so that they can decide what's the best fit for their AI strategy. So this is one aspect that we can do. But if there is like you said, not everybody's an AI data scientist, but they are an expert in their field in HR or market analysis or whatever it is, security, we can use their experience, their knowledge, and their data within the organization. And when you pool, you can become more of a secure environment, because many people see and do things from different angles and thoughts and experience. And when you get that information in, and you share with each other, then you can actually use that within an organization to be more efficient and secure and so forth. Yeah.
I imagine there's a lot of demand for very early stage training as well. You talked about some of the CEOs. I've been for decades and decades, I've been on my soapbox about this very thing, which is it is impossible for an organization to have a conversation with itself across the management team, across the operational teams, if they aren't all speaking the same language with the same terminology and the same vernacular in the same context. And so I imagine one of the best things our audience can do is to reach out to yourselves there at Scaia AI and say, we would love to put our management team through your training course there at Elephant Scale, your sister business, and make sure that they all understand what AI is and is not, what it can and can't do, where the strengths and capabilities are, and then where the gaps are. And particularly give them the terminology and the phrases such they've got a common vernacular, common language, so that when they go into these meetings, or they go into workshops, whether they're doing a town hall across the business or just talking to each other in the hallway at the water cooler, that when one person's talking about machine learning and another person's talking about it, they're actually talking about the same thing. Because I think there's a big risk where there's sort of, the CEO is talking here and a CTO is talking there, and then they have very different understandings of what the common element is. Is it the case that you would recommend that organizations reach out to you very early and get that initial high-level training from the management team down to just set the scene so they are speaking the same language and the same vernacular to avoid all those misunderstandings?
Oh, definitely. And the more you learn, the more you become, you're able to control your, let's say, destiny, or make those right decisions. Definitely, because each one is tag teaming, each one is working together, and for the organization or the company, that is the key, the efficiency of it all. It's like, why are we doing this? So we become better in whatever we do. And the data that we have versus within our company versus the CTO, the CIO, or whoever, we can actually become better as a unit and as an organization. Definitely.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And people will be surprised on what and how they can make those decisions in order to become more efficient. That's my number one thing, is how do I be more efficient with my time, my people, my energy, my prediction for the next move. You don't want to waste time or money. Everybody, and if you've got extra time and money, you're going to go spend it with your family and friends, and you're going to have that holiday, whatever you need. So why not let the machines do some of the work?
Yeah, indeed.
And then you can make clear decisions. And if it's not the right thing to do, if your gut says, hey, this is not for me, well, that's fine too. But give it a shot. Give it a chance to prove itself and see the outcomes. This is why you have different people on your team too. You have all these, from the lowest person all the way up. You have to listen to each one of us. Each one of us has to receive and give, and then of course there'll be better outcomes for efficiency. Yes, sir.
Yeah, indeed. And for our audience, again, I highly recommend you visit Scaia AI's website. Under the services tab, you'll see education. It does link to elephantscale.com. There's so much information on the Elephant Scale website, your sister business that provides a training and education. But I think I spent 25 minutes there over the weekend and just realized I was getting pleasantly lost in the detail of all those things there. And as you alluded to, there's webinars you run weekly. There's summaries of those. You can re-watch those on demand. Most of that information is freely available to get started. I highly recommend that people reach out to you and your team to get that very early conversation started. get the initial training at the management level, make sure they're all talking the same language, help them develop a language and a vocab with which to speak about this topic of AI, because it is so broad and so deep that it's easy to end up with sort of this, everyone going off on a different tangent. And that training then becomes one of those powerful tools where, and I wanted to just also close on one thing there, James, which I forgot to mention, which is not only do you do the training and the education, there's some very high level stuff that can be self-service. There's some courses you do hands-on. But the key thing that struck me, and Mark, your CEO, touched on this, is you actually provide formal certification. So people actually have to prove they've consumed the content, prove they understand it, and demonstrate that they have done the course. And then you actually certify them. You issue an actual certificate, whether it's a PDF or a physical piece of board with a gold stamp on it. To me, that is so valuable, because if I'm a CEO and I'm sending you 30 or 40 of my team and I say, okay, give them some basic education training, when they come back, I actually want some sort of proof point that they've not only done the course, but actually understood it. I don't just want a tick in the box. I want to know that they
That's right.
really now know the material, that they can then go and implement some of that capability. And having that certification, I think, is so valuable for the individual, because I'm not necessarily going to be with the company forever. I can take the certification with me, but it also helps me become more effective in my role in the business. But from the company's perspective, I think the more and more organizations realize that the value of investing in training and education that is fully certified by the likes of yourselves at Scaia AI with your Elephant Scale sister business, that's invaluable, because it means you can now go to your own teams, your own silos, and also your customers and say, we've not only
True.
skilled our team up, they are formally certified. We have been trained, educated, and we're certified. And by the way, here's a certificate and a frame. So we now know what we're talking about. We can not only talk the talk, we can walk the talk. And I think that certification is something that our audience really should be looking at to gain not just only education and training, but actually get that certification. Make sure that the team at Scaia AI have actually certified you to prove that you really do know your stuff, so you can get on with your normal core business with that AI certification. I wanted to just touch on one last thing before we wrap up, and that I think, we've touched on a number of things, and it could be that we've taken people on a number of tangents. I wanted to bring it all back together so that our audience leaves us today with a very, very clear view of what a typical customer engagement looks like. And we don't have to name any particular one. It doesn't have to be a particular real customer. But if we were to sort of look at it from the point of view of through the lens of your role as Chief Growth Officer in particular, what does a typical customer engagement look like from the initial contact through to the early consulting and advisory, some of the design and development work you can provide, early trials, and in particular, the proof of concept projects you can do, such as your e-discovery offering, to getting a final working solution implemented and deployed, and then potentially handed over to the customer to run themselves. And then any ongoing work, such as support and operation or maintenance upgrades, and of course, training and education certifications. In an ideal world, when an organization comes to you, and we do want our audience to do just that, what does a typical customer engagement look like in your experience?
Well, it depends on where we meet them and how we can interact and see what is best for them, because depending on their budget and what they want to do. But we have, we're very flexible. We're open for to assist, to consult, to help. Even if they want a roadmap, we can help them do that. But definitely, we can give some kind of a direction concerning their AI strategy. Now, whether they want to use it and expound for more, we can help them with that also. It just depends on how they desire. There's some that are just learning. We've had people say, well, what do I do? I mean, where do I start? Well, it's pretty simple. We can help you with that. It's not going to be too much way over your head. And if you don't have the time to take the course, Mr. CEO, you can have your CTO go. And, this is the important realm. And then with that, you can move forward with your data. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So
Yeah,
just a
basically.
final one for you, James, to me, just talking about all these big topics, it's become abundantly clear to me, at the risk of sounding sycophantic, that you and the team at Scaia AI have everything any organization could ever need to help them achieve their goals, not only in getting started with AI, but also ongoing success leveraging AI in the short, medium, and long term. To wrap us up, how can folk get in touch with you now, with you and the team there at Scaia AI, to start a conversation about how you and your team of experts at Scaia AI can help them and their organization get either started with, get started with AI as well, double quotes, get started with AI, or in general, just take advantage of what we discussed today around your services solutions to gain successful outcomes for their AI initiatives. What's the best way, or what are some of the ways they can get in touch with you?
Through the website, our emails, phone, whatever is the best means for them. Email is great, James at Scaia.ai, SCAIA.ai, scalable AI. And if, you don't hear from us soon, it's our mistake, but we're here to help. We want to be able to move forward, help people move forward with their organizations, their companies, their schools, whatever it is, and be able to use their data in any way they desire because they own their data. And this is how you can become more efficient and profitable. Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Well, James, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you so much for making time to have this great conversation with me. We will have you back on the show again many, many times to delve into some of these in more detail. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate you watching this on demand, I believe it will be. As James mentioned, go to their website. We will have the link wherever you see this video. It's Scaia.ai, SCAIA.ai. There is a contact form. Learn about their organization, get more insight into their products and services and capabilities, their training and education certification. There's a contact form there. Drop them the details. They will get back to you very, very quickly. There's an email address if you prefer. It's hello@scaia.ai. Or if you prefer, they're available by phone. I've even tested reaching out to you via social media. So I've tested Mark in particular and the company page. So on LinkedIn, for example, you can reach out through each of their staff profiles, or you can just talk to the company page itself and send them an email on LinkedIn. Reach out today, start that conversation. Don't let your organization have AI happen to it. Make sure you take control of AI, you direct it, you lead it. And the partner of choice I highly recommend is Scaia AI and James and the team there. James, great to see you. Thank you so much. And we'll look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you, Dez. Thank you for everything.